Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Lebanon Redevelopment Commission meeting. We will go ahead and call ourselves to order and begin our meeting as we do with each meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
All righty, Madam Clerk. Looks like we're all present except for Dr. Taylor. So that is the roll. And first up is our approval of minutes, which we're going to go ahead and skip for this time and move right on to new business, seeing no old business on our agenda. And first up, we are going to have a conversation about the TIF pass-through determination, and Annika from Baker Tilly has a presentation for us. This is our annual update. They're going to hit magic buttons. It's going to appear. It's fantastic.
Great. All righty. Hi, everyone. Again, as mentioned, I'm Annika Sinekin with Baker Tilly Municipal Advisors. I work alongside Emma Adlam and Brian Colton, who you've seen multiple times up here before. The purpose of today's presentation is just to give a high-level overview of the TIF annual report and to satisfy the annual meeting requirement of the RDC. So for this statute, it covers the long-term financial plan of the areas, budgeting of the current year for the allocation areas, and then also to discuss the impact to the overlapping taxing units. So the three topics just to cover in this presentation today is to go over a brief overview of the TIF mechanics for anyone who maybe isn't as familiar with TIF. And then we'll move into discussing Lebanon's TIF areas, and then we'll wrap it up with discussing some impacts of the TIF to the overlapping taxing units. So starting with some TIF mechanics. So at the time a TIF area is created, the assessed value at that time of that area is created, and that area is created is considered the base assessed value. So that's this gray area, this gray box down here at the bottom. So as you see, that triangle above there is considered the incremental assessed value, and this is the increase of the increase from the new development, the new assessed value that is generated in the area, and this is what the TIF area captures. And then at the end of the allocation area, whenever it expires, this new project assessed value is created, which is the base plus the increment up here. And this assessed value goes to the overlapping taxing units. So just kind of a brief summary of that is that the overlapping units kind of see, it's a postponement of the increase of assessed value to the overlapping units. So you'll hear me say three different terms pretty often throughout this presentation: economic development area, or EDA, a TIF allocation area, and then also special benefits tax. So starting off, the EDA right here is this reddish outline on here, and then the TIF allocation area is this orange box. So for the TIF allocation area, this is where your tax increment or TIF is being collected. And then the EDA is where those dollars can be distributed to. An allocation area and EDA can be coterminous with one another, but it's not required. So there can be multiple allocation areas within one economic development area, which you do have. The consolidated economic development area has multiple allocation areas, and the TIF dollars being collected within those allocation areas can be used for different economic development projects within this greater EDA. And then also, as you see on this blue little circle here, that's the special benefits tax. So most of your bonds do have this special benefits tax backup. And a special benefits tax is a property tax that is levied on the Lebanon Redevelopment Commission, which is also in the same boundaries as the city. This special benefits tax just creates more marketability on the bond. So when you're going to rating agencies, this helps as a good backup for them to give you a good rating. And we see this very often with a lot of different areas. This next slide is an easy, just a quick summary of just the expirations of different TIF areas. So depending on when an area was created and the legislation at that time can determine on when that area will expire. So there are many areas that were created early in 1995 for Lebanon that may expire different than one that was created recently. So this is just a good reference to look at depending on when your allocation areas were created and when they expire. Also, if there are any questions, please feel free to stop me as I'm going through. So we're gonna move into Lebanon's allocation areas now. So starting off with your greatest and biggest, sorry, I'm going to try to make this a little bit more even for you to look at. Starting with your biggest allocation area is the industrial park allocation area. This was created in July of 1994, and you can see it's been expanded multiple times since then. So as I mentioned a few slides ago, with those expansion areas, they have different expiration dates. So you can see we have different years of when this expires. So kind of starting with going with the tax increment with that, currently for 2024, the estimated tax increment for this area is about $3.6 million. And you see it kind of increases a little bit over the next few years, or is estimated to, and this is just because of abatements that are rolling off from the area over the next few years. But you can see the first expiration date is 2026 for a portion of this area. So given that estimate, the last year of estimated collections is for 2027. So you can see in 2027, it starts to dip, or after 2027, it starts to dip down. And then you can see that trend continue as different portions of this allocation area begin to expire. So for this allocation area, you also have outstanding obligations. There are 7 bonds outstanding for this area, and you can see they were issued to fund various purposes and developments in this allocation area. And we've listed those purposes and also their final maturities and how long they'll be outstanding for. And as mentioned, a lot of these are all paid from TIF from this industrial park allocation area, and they have that special benefits tax backup that I mentioned earlier as well. This is also a slide that we've had in previous years just to show, this is kind of a condensed version of the greater cash flows that we have in the actual TIF annual report. If you've received that, it's on page 19 of the TIF annual report. So with this, we look at the estimated revenues to expenses over a 5-year period. So for the estimated revenues, we look at the estimated TIF for the 5-year period going forward. And then with, you also have the Vinson's annual lease payments that you've received, and then some other miscellaneous receipts to get your total revenues. And then also for the expenses, those include debt service payments on the bonds that I just previously showed you, some annual pay-as-you-go expenses, and then also some one-time pay-as-you-go expenses. For those annual expenses, those can just be something as like financial advisory fees, legal fees, or just various projects that maybe need an annual fee. And then the one-time expenses that are miscellaneous can be, for example, your railroad project expenses, utilities reimbursements, and other miscellaneous expenses. So moving on to your developer TIF areas. So these allocation areas, some of them have bonds outstanding and some of them don't. But these were created due to developers coming in and wanting an allocation area for these projects that they've created. So the first 5 that you see listed on there do have bonds outstanding. Some of them have all of the TIF pledged to paying off the bonds. Some of them have a portion of the TIF used to pay off the bonds. So you can see we have the estimated redevelopment TIF that is coming to the Redevelopment Commission for those portions that have the 75%. And then moving down to ones that no longer have either bonds outstanding or have not had bonds pledged. So the DA lubricant used to have a bond outstanding. It matured in 2022. So now you're starting to see a little bit of TIF coming in for that area. And then the final 3 have not had any bonds issued for them. Wanted to point out Ken's Foods, though. You can see they do have a pretty good chunk of TIF coming in for that. The developer did originally think that they wanted to issue bonds for this area, but then decided it wasn't necessary. So now the project TIF from that is coming in, and you're generating a little over $2 million of TIF dollars for that. And given that this is in the greater consolidated economic development area, this TIF revenue can be used for any projects within the greater economic development area. Moving on to the downtown allocation area. This area was combined into the consolidated area in 2017. So now you are starting to see a little bit of TIF coming in. So you can see estimated TIF revenues for this year were around 100,000. This area also includes the Forza development, which you can see is up here on top in the gray shaded area. But again, you're starting to see a little bit more TIF coming in. This is due to some abatements rolling off and then also new projects coming in that are increasing those TIF revenues. Moving on to the Gateway Marketplace allocation area. This area was created in 2018 and expires in 2043. There is a bond outstanding for this area. It was created to help fund a mixed-use development. It's payable from TIF generated in the allocation area, food and beverage tax revenues as a backup, and also that special benefits tax backup. Something we did want to know is we are estimating to see a little bit of food and beverage taxes that need to be used to pay these bonds. It's a very, very light blue, but this is what we're estimated to be, this little box here for the TIF revenues. So this gray area of the food and beverage taxes for 2024 to 2026 is estimated to use to pay off those bonds. Given the reason for this, I think we were estimated to think that the TIF revenues would have been covering the bonds by now, but just because of projects being a little bit more delayed, that's the reason the food and beverage tax needs to be implemented right now. But eventually, TIF is anticipated to cover the bond payments. Now on your Fieldhouse allocation area, this is one of your kind of newer allocation areas and of course used to fund the Fieldhouse project and also just the surrounding area, surrounding development and hotels, residential, restaurants, any sort of entertainment. So this was used to help capture the revenues from these developments. In addition to that, you have 3 bonds outstanding for this allocation area. Two of them were issued in 2022, and then we recently just closed on the 2024 bonds. So for the 2022 A bonds, these were issued for the Fieldhouse project itself. These are payable from available revenues of the commission with a certified shares or local income tax backup. And then the 2022B and the recent 2024 bonds, these were issued for the public infrastructure project. These are payable from available revenues of the commission with a special benefits tax backup. And something I did want to point out and just point out to everyone is that the Series A bonds, the 22 bonds, these are used for a private use, and that's why they're taxable. So that's why this has the certified shares backup as opposed to the property tax backup for the public use projects. So kind of going into the estimated revenues from the Fieldhouse development, we wanted to kind of break down just different pieces that are playing into the full revenues to help pay off these bonds and the project. So the Fieldhouse revenues, again, yeah, it includes the surrounding development. It includes just like the industrial buildings and everything included in this area. So on top of the development, there's also a pledge of $600,000 of company operating revenues. There's also a food and beverage tax from the restaurants that are going to be in the project that are used for these revenues to pay off the bonds. And then to the extent pledged, an innkeeper's tax revenues. So kind of working from the bottom up, this bottom area, or this yellow shaded, is the estimated Fieldhouse TIF, so the TIF from the actual project itself. This gray area is the surrounding development that will be around the Fieldhouse. This next one here is the darker shaded is from the industrial buildings, so this is the TIF from those buildings. This next line right here is those company operating revenues that I mentioned, the $600,000. The small shaded lighter blue is the estimated food and beverage revenues, approximately $138,000. And then the estimated innkeeper's tax revenues here on the top, which is approximately $344,000. So all in all, after full complete build out, currently estimating it to be $4.2 million of revenues. So keeping in mind, this big piece is going to carry over into this next slide that I'm about to show you. So this very light shaded blue is the total revenues from what I just showed you. So this slide shows a comparison of the estimated developer revenues to pay off the lease rentals on the 3 bonds that I previously just showed you. So that larger shaded area, again, is what I just showed you of the whole surrounding development of the Fieldhouse area. And then you can see there's a small shade of gray, if you can see it. There's a small shade of gray right here. And these are additional revenues of the Redevelopment Commission to help pay off these bonds. We had wanted to mention this was part of approvals that were made last year. And this is just kind of a very small range to help with the coverage on these bonds. And then these columns, as you can see, represent the outstanding bonds that I had showed you. So those 22B, 22A, 22B, and then the 2024 bonds. So kind of showing that with the issuing these bonds, we do have plenty of coverage to cover everything. So these available revenues are going to be carrying over into this next slide. And this is a comparison of estimated available revenues to the obligations. So we're focusing on just the available revenues that are not being used to pay debt service. So these are available revenues after other bonds have been paid. So the TIF revenues of the consolidated economic development area. So you use these available revenues to help pay the Forza loan, the Shell Building BOT, and then that slight sliver of gray of available revenues to pay off for coverage on those 3 outstanding bonds. Questions before I move on to the impact of TIF? All righty. So the third and final part of the presentation is impacts of tax increments. So one question we often get is, does TIF take away from other taxing units? So when a TIF area is created, it has to meet the but-for test. So with new developments coming in, is the TIF going to happen? So when new developments have occurred, I'll restart that. Would new developments occur if it wasn't for the TIF? So if they would not have happened, but for the TIF and the incentives, then the TIF is not taking away from other taxing units. So the units are not losing this assessed value. For an example, to put it in perspective, the New Cold area, the company had requested incentives, and without this TIF area or the bonds being issued, this project would not have happened. So this TIF area helped, and the bonds issued helped fund this project and make this project move forward. And again, something to mention is that TIF just postpones the assessed value going to the overlapping taxing units. And then something else I wanted to note is that overlapping units still also can see a benefit they can still see a benefit with these allocation areas. As mentioned, that base assessed value is still in place for when that area was created, so they're not losing that assessed value. And then also, the Redevelopment Commission does not currently capture personal property. So say a company comes in and has personal property development, the overlapping units will see the assessed value from that personal property. This is something that we know isn't quite an issue for you guys, but something we do like to discuss is does TIF take away from schools? So majority of school expenses, as you know, are funded from the state, but an increase in assessed value doesn't necessarily mean new dollars because there is a max levy in place. So the operations fund and the debt service fund are at their maximum levy. So if a school corporation is at their max levy, any sort of a pass-through assessed value would not translate into new dollars, but it would be a reduction in the tax rate. So passing through assessed value would have an indirect effect on the schools by reducing their circuit breaker losses. This isn't a one-to-one relationship either. But also one main impact that TIF has on schools is that the TIF assessed value is part of the tax base of the referendum levy that you have in place. That being said, with this referendum in place, all the TIF that is within the boundaries of Lebanon schools is applied to the referendum calculation. And we have this detailed out here in this box. One final bit, just to kind of discuss the impact of TIF, just to kind of give an example, is the impact of the industrial park allocation area and its TIF. So with this, it was funded from the industrial park TIF bonds, $22 million of infrastructure. Something that could have been done instead of issuing these bonds or creating the TIF area would be to have a property tax bond. So with this, it would have required to have met an annual tax rate requirement, which would have in turn involved having an increased tax rate. This would have increased circuit breaker losses and also caused additional revenue loss because of those increased property taxes. But something to note too, though, is with this industrial park TIF, is that not all the buildings are being captured in the TIF allocation area. So there are certain personal property parcels that are within this. So the overlapping units are seeing some assessed value being passed through to them due to this area and this infrastructure project. And then I have a slide of our contact information. If you probably can't see it, but if you need any contact information between myself, Brian, or Emma, I can give you that as well. But are there any questions?
Awesome. Thank you very much for that overview. It looks like overall the TIF is very healthy for us in the Redevelopment Commission. Commissioners, any comments, questions, concerns?
Can we get a copy of that?
No. I'm just kidding. Yes.
Yeah, we can send over a copy. I know Rob has it, Tanya has it, but we can circulate, or you can circulate it.
Get a copy for all of us, please.
Yeah, we can circulate.
Okay, just set.
Yeah, so a copy will circulate soon,
Thank you.
very soon. Any other questions from the commission? Perfect. Annika, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I appreciate the thorough overview. Obviously, we have just a little bit of work going on in the town these days, the city these days. So with that, we do have a determination that we need to make annually. Rob, do you want to go over that, or just high level, or?
Yeah, commission members, as we communicated before, so we had the annual presentation, the TIP presentation from our financial advisor. One of the other things this body needs to do is determine if it's going to pass any excess TIF on to the other taxing districts. In the past, this commission has chosen not to do it because of all the ongoing projects, including, I know that's why Annika highlighted, the most recent one dealing with the field house and all the additional matters that have been pledged to that project. So that is, we need to make a decision on that this evening on what to do. And then we will notify all those taxing districts of that decision by this commission, just as they were notified of this meeting.
So, and commission, just so you know as well, so obviously we see some of the ongoing projects that we do know about. I also know there's some very exciting things, hopefully in the works downtown as well, including the 124, 126 building, which is a little bit later on our agenda. So a lot of great things happening, and the growth continues throughout the entire TIF area. So I would entertain a motion in regards to the TIF.
The motion would be that the commission would decide if it would wish to keep the TIF, and then it would not pass any excess value on to the taxing districts.
You say historically we have not.
That is correct.
And given kind of where we're at right now, there have been a couple of abatements fall off, but we still have, as you saw, the first kind of 10 years of the field house. We have some additional TIF pledged over from different projects into that project. So I personally think, from a pledge standpoint, it would be wise to keep that within the Redevelopment Commission to continue to move these projects forward.
I'll make a motion that we keep the TIF revenue for this upcoming year and will not pass any on to other units.
So we have a motion and a second to not pass through any additional TIF. All those in favor, please signify with an aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. That motion does carry. Thank you very much, Commission. Again, thank you, Annika, for the updates. Next up on the agenda, we've got just a couple of quick items here. First one is discussion in regards to the purchase agreement for 124, 126 North Lebanon Street. Just a quick update for you guys. We've pretty much come to a very close conclusion on that one. So we should be ready to represent that final purchase agreement to you guys, hopefully in either the next meeting or potentially a special meeting if required. So that is very much pending. And then the second update for you guys tonight, the Paradise Shaved Ice settlement agreement. We've all but got some ink on that one as well. So hope to have that one closed up literally in the next probably 24 to 48 hours. So I will keep you posted the finalization of that one. So I see no other new business on the agenda. Anything from the commissioners? Perfect. We do have some claims, so I would entertain a motion to pay our claims.
Make a motion to pay claims.
Got a motion to pay them? Do we have a second? And a second. All those in favor, please signify with an aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. That does carry. And our favorite one of the night, a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
And a second. All those in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. See you at the next Redevelopment Commission meeting.